Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chesky. Joining me, the product specialist for Axe Sledge Supplements, Miss Heather Jacques. Hey Heather, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? I just want to say before we get started, thank you for having me on the show. I've been listening to you for I don't even know how many years. Like you said, when I got into supplements and I started listening to you and Justin Hall when you used to do a podcast together, and I just remember thinking like, hey, one of these days I'm going to be more into the industry and more like hopefully working for a brand. And it was like learning from you guys really helped because you and Justin, your banter and stuff like, but you're very knowledgeable. So it was like a fun mix of like entertainment, education. So just want to say I appreciate you having me on the show because I know you've had so many other phenomenal like guests and people like that on your show, like renowned people in the industry. So it's definitely an honor to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us, and yeah, it's thank you for the kind words too. It's kind of weird. I just feel like this big-eyed nerd that kind of just rambles on these podcasts and just kind of spits out a whole bunch of useless information that I'm sure 4.5 people like to listen to. So thank you for being one of the 4.5 people that listen to this. So I appreciate it, and any kind of beneficial impact we can have on the industry through our ramblings, it's nice. It's encouraging that we something comes from my love and nerdiness of all this stuff.
So, no, for sure. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, let's get your backstory, because anytime we have a first time guest, I like to get their backstory. And so we were talking a little bit before we fired up the podcast engine. So how did you? We have some shared history in the industry with our work path. So how did you get into this, and how did that evolve to your present day with Axe Sledge?
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning because it's kind of a long story, but I'll keep it as brief as I can. When I was in high school, I was just an athlete. I loved playing basketball, running cross country, running track. Like the cross country and track were my two main sports because I just was, I guess, good at them, pretty decent enough to get a scholarship to run in college and whatnot. And I started lifting weights.
Where did you go?
So I started out going to college at Davenport University, which is in Grand Rapids. It's a smaller school. It's private. It's more of a business school. But they did have a cross country team, and I got some other offers. But we'll get to this. But as I was going there, I only did one semester there before I realized, like, hey, I need to focus on my education. And this still feels like high school to me. Like college sports wasn't really giving me what I thought it would give me, I guess. And running became a job, and I started to not like it. So that's when I made the transition to a different school, which is a little bit more well known. It's Grand Valley State University. That's also out of Grand Rapids. So similar areas, just a little bit different, schools and they have a lot more offerings at Grand Valley State University than they do at Davenport. Like I said, business school, and I just wasn't super interested in like doing that. I was more of a anatomy physiology nerd. I love, exercise, science, and that's what I was really passionate about. And also, as I was running, I got into the gym and started lifting weights. And I actually went to this, like, I lived in Traverse City, Michigan, which is a smaller town in northern Michigan, but they had this old school bodybuilding gym there. And I didn't realize at the time how lucky I was to lift there because they had everything you could possibly imagine. Like, it was these two guys, like it was started by two brothers. And they had a passion for bodybuilding. They know how to pick out, the best equipment, and it was just a good atmosphere. And it's something that I feel like a lot of gyms are missing nowadays, especially with the commercial kind of gyms and things like that. Like, you find them, like I know around Austin, there's a ton of really cool gyms to check out.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the hub, and that's where I fell into, learning about bodybuilding and learning about, lifting weights. And I just got, so I remember going to the Arnold for the first time, 2015, and that was my senior year of high school. And I was just like, wow, like there's actually people like me out there. Cause where I'm from, lifting wasn't really a thing. Like, yeah, those guys lifted, but like, unless you went to that gym, like my high school friends, they're all runners. No one lifted weights. It was like kind of weird. And especially the bodybuilding scene, like you didn't see that up there. It was pretty rare. But I just fell, straight into it because I found out, and I think a lot of athletes do this, is they find out they love training more than they love competing. Because although running was fun, I love just doing 5Ks on the weekend or doing half marathons. And it was more of a like, hey, let's just finish this. Let's not try to kill ourselves and get a certain time. Like, of course that's fun, but it's like, it's not always the best on your body and the most fun to do every weekend. But so I got heavily into, sports and athletics and ended up getting a scholarship to go to college. And that was like my dream at the time, coming from a small town. I graduated 45 people. So it's like, there's not much, there's not much out there. And so getting a scholarship to go to college was like big for me. I was like, this is my dream ever since I was a little girl just playing basketball. Too bad I'm not very tall, so basketball didn't really work out. Yeah, so that was cool. And I ended up running there. And like I said, I tore my hamstring my freshman year. So that really hampered my, running abilities because I was like, now I'm hurt. Now I can't run because I was supposed to do, cross country in the fall, indoor track and outdoor track. So it's supposed to be an all year long
Yeah.
kind of thing. And I just was like, man, this feels like high school to me. It doesn't feel like college. And I don't really want this degree. And I'm spending all this money because obviously it was even though I got a scholarship, it wasn't a full ride or anything. And it
Right.
was a private school. So really expensive, obviously.
Yeah.
So that's when I was like, you know what? I kind of want to do exercise science or athletic training. And I know Grand Valley had a really good program. Like it was pretty well known. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to switch. And what's funny is at the time I switched over and fortunately I got in. So now athletic training is a master's degree. Like you have to get your master's. Whereas at Grand Valley, they offered it as a bachelor's.
Okay.
So I ended up getting the last class to be a bachelor. So if you got accepted into the program, so it almost was like a master's because you had to do 2 years of prereqs and then you had to apply and do all this stuff to get accepted into the program. And they only accepted like 11 people. So I ended up getting in and I was like, oh, that's awesome because I don't have to do a master's, even though
Yeah.
down the road we'll do this, but I decided to do a master's. So I ended up doing that. It was a lot of fun because I got to work with a bunch of different sports teams. And I got to learn a whole lot about the human body and the career, right? Like you find out like, wow, this looks cool, but on the outside, like unless you work at a college, like a lot of athletic trainers are overworked, they're underpaid. There's a lot of downsides to that career, and you don't really know that until you're in it, and you're like, okay, either you stay here and you be athletic trainer, or you move on, right? So I ended up graduating from there. This whole time throughout college, I was still lifting weights, still going to the gym almost every day, and also learning more about supplements just on my own, right? Because you and I both know there's no degree for supplements, right? Like exercise physiology does help and anatomy physiology does help because it helps you understand like my degree was very heavy on the research side of things. So I had to write a ton of papers, read a lot of articles, although it was mainly like about athletic training versus, like supplements. It was still about athletic performance and things like that.
Right.
So I did pretty well in college. It was a very tough program. Like I said, I had clinicals. I worked with the football team. I worked with a lacrosse team, high schools. Like we had a bunch of different things we had to do.
Yeah.
And I finished that and I actually ended up getting a graduate assistant position at Northern Michigan University, which is in the UP. And that entailed they'll essentially pay for my master's if you work for the college. So I was going to work in the clinic and also be a teacher, assistant teacher, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up going up there, and it was probably 5 or 6 hours from where I'm from. And if you think Traverse City is not very populated, Northern Michigan's not populated at all. It's
that upper span right there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a college town. So the winters are brutal, like super, super brutal. So when I was doing my master's there, I was going to do a master's in exercise science. And my goal was to become either a collegiate, athletic trainer or a, collegiate strength and conditioning coach, like something like that, or even go on to get my PhD and become a teacher. Because at this point, what's funny is that in high school, I hated school. I was like, I'm only here to run and do sports. And then as I became, I progressed in college, I became more of a nerd and I was like, I just love to learn. Like it was a big switch for me.
Yeah.
So in college, I ended up getting a 4.0 during my first semester there. It was actually the best I've ever done.
Awesome.
And then I saw PricePlow because I've been following them right on Instagram because, I'm a supplement nerd and I like how they put out information and reviews and all that stuff. And they put out I think it was just a posting. Hey, we need a writer. We need like a content writer, and they're going to offer, X amount of dollars per year. And I was like doing the numbers. I was like, you know what? Athletic trainers make about that much. So if I can do that and I don't have to, continue, not that I didn't love school. There was like, school will always be there, I think. And I applied not thinking anything, right? I applied thinking there's no way they're going to reach out to me. I'm just like I remember sending in like papers from my school because like that's all I had in terms of content, right? So they ended up calling me. I think it was Mike, of course, and offering me a job. And I was like, okay, well, at first it was kind of like not like part-time, but like, you get paid X amount of years, but it wasn't like a full-time, like you're a 401k employee, whatever. So I ended up doing that. And I was like, I'll finish school and I'll do this job on the side. And between doing my master's, between, doing the graduate assistant position and writing for PricePlow, I was like, dude, this is just too much. Like I can't do all of this at one time, even if I like really I mean, I probably could have if I really pushed myself, but I decided to make the leap. My mom was supportive of it. So I did it. And then that's when I started writing for them and getting more into the industry. And, I wrote for them for a while. I actually ended up dropping out of school, went back to my hometown, which is Traverse City. And then my home life wasn't good at the time. That's another story, but I ended up deciding to move to Texas because I was like, you know what? I can live wherever because this is a remote position.
Yep.
And I'm taking on more responsibilities. And I know it was pretty much like, hey, you'll be a full-time employee, you get a raise if you want to move down here, we'll make videos, content, kind of like what you went through as well. So I started taking on the role of not only writing all the articles, but scheduling content, doing a little bit more videos, getting a little bit more known. So I actually moved down there, didn't really work out there because I was kind of unhappy not being by my family. So moved back, and it was a better situation because we moved into my mom's house, so it was a little bit better for me. So I ended up living there, and then as I was living there, Axe Sledge is a brand we started working with right through PricePlow, and it was a big account for us because I don't think PricePlow, they may have done some content with them in the beginning, but they just never really was a consistent relationship. So we started doing that, and I started having phone calls with at the time Mike and Pat, two of the owners. Most people know Seth Feroci because he's the face of the brand. There's also another owner, Robert, or Bobby, I call him. And he's he does the Ironmans and all these different triathlons. So he's actually another owner as well. But so we started talking to Mike and Pat, and then they kind of recruited me. They said, hey, you're doing really great work for PricePlow, but why don't you just come do it for us? And I was like, you know what? I never saw I had nothing bad to say about PricePlow, but I never saw that being the long-term, I'm going to stay here forever kind of job. It was more of my goal was to get into the industry, to start helping with formulations, products, still doing a ton of writing, but I knew what my goal was, and that's what it was. So I ended up deciding to leave, and that was February of 2021, I think. And I worked from home for about a month, and then I actually moved to Pittsburgh, which I've actually never even visited before in my life. So I just made the leap. They flew me out for a week, and at some point, and had me check it out. And luckily, I got my supervisor's townhouse he was moving out of because there wasn't really a lot of apartments available. But I ended up getting that, and now fast forward, and now I'm pretty much leading on for obviously it's a collaborative effort, but I'm pretty much leading on the formulation side of things. I started out just doing blogs for the site, doing the copyright for obviously the web pages, stuff like you probably do on the side as well for some brands. And then I started to get into working with our manufacturers, talking to them on a pretty much daily basis, visiting them, just really diving more deeper into the ins and outs of a company and the way this industry is. It's very interesting to me, and it's a side of things I've always want to learn more about, the manufacturing, the flavoring, how ingredients work, how supply works, right? Because at that time it was a supply chain nightmare. It was you're getting in the industry now, you're gonna have fun formulating because everything's how much money,
Yeah, you gotta wait a year and a half to get a creatine restock.
Right. Yeah, and I remember formulating a few products, and I was I'm super excited because it's a packed out formula, and then I get the price quote, and I'm like, yeah, that's not gonna work. You know what I mean? Because it's the dream to be able to. I know you guys talk about a lot on your other podcasts of doing all these stacked formulas, and I give credit to a lot of brands. I mean, there's some that I know it's an expensive formula and they still do it. And, you're trying to, battle with the supply chain issue and still get the prices to be, because, at the end of the day, there's not many consumers out there who's going to buy a $70 pre-workout. There's just not. So it was a challenging time. I think there's kind of light at the end of the tunnel, things are looking better. But it's a big learning curve for me because that's something that, listen, this is all self-taught, right? I don't know, and all of a sudden I felt like a newbie again because I'm wow, I didn't even think about, prices and supply chain and all of these things that you have to think about and consider. And especially when you're even looking at reformulating products that have been your number one sellers, it's okay, it needs to be better, but how does it need to be almost the same price that it is now? It's that's where it becomes challenging, but it's been a lot of fun, and I'm super grateful to be in the position I am now, and looking forward. It's exciting to me because every time we launch a product, it's you get the feedback, and of course it's not always positive, but it's to see you launch a product and have it be successful and get great reviews or whatever it is. It's very rewarding for me to do that. But it's funny because you work out a formula a year and it doesn't come out till X amount of months later, you're like, man, that took a long time. And I'm not even thinking about that anymore, So it's fun though. And we also own, if you didn't know, we have Axe Sledge Supplements. We have All American Roughneck, which is an apparel brand. So those two brands are both rapidly growing. So it's kind of like a push and pull of like, what brand are we focusing on now? Because it's like, I don't do anything with AAR except for maybe help out with shipping sometimes because when they have releases. But as a team, the owners have to deal with balancing those two. And you know what I mean? Like just making everything work. But it's great because I think our community is super strong, which makes things fun because then like everyone's supporting each other and everyone's excited about things and stuff like that. So
yeah, excellent. There's a lot of things I want to go with first. I'm gonna go kind of differently. We'll get back to the ingredient and the formulation stuff in a second, but from your experience and your view of the brand and where the access you've had to the meetings, where you think you might be going forward. A lot of times when brands start small and they have a rapid growth and success, kind of like Axe Sledge has had, they start off and dial down into like a particular niche. Like they're this hardcore company, and then they gravitate more towards the mainstream, and their products not necessarily get watered down, but they just like think about the old like Cellucor and Muscle Tech stuff or Redcon when it first came out, and to where those things are now. It's almost like two different companies kind of thing. So where their initial demographic, what got them there, is not what's going to keep moving them forward, and that same consumer demographic is not going to be that way. But given Seth's kind of, ethos and the way he likes to run things and the way, Mike and Pat used to be when Pat was with the company, and I've never met Bobby, but, those three I actually have met before and talked with them. What's your perception of the company and how kind of the way it's the path forward? Do you see it kind of going on that trajectory? Hey, we're getting bigger. We need to appeal to the masses more. Are we going to kind of stay dialed into our like, woo-ha, let's kick ass American kind of lifestyle?
I think it's like we still want to stay true to our community and our brand and our beginning, but it is like you just said, we do want to reach more people. And I think the way we're moving, like I don't know if you've really followed our brand much, but we've launched more like mainstream products like reds and greens and vegan proteins. And I always laugh because I think like if you asked Seth a year ago if he would ever launch a vegan protein, he'd probably say no. But I think it's starting to realize that, and especially with Seth and his health and his past history too, is that I think the health market has really been missed out on. You know what I mean? Like there's certain brands like Revive MD and certain brands that really tackle that well. And I think that's where we're moving to because we do cater to a lot of bodybuilders, a lot of elite athletes. We just signed Missy Truscott. She's fitness Miss Olympia, but at the same time, it's like, and this is something I think most people have matured on. Like in the beginning of my supplement journey, I just focused on pre-workouts and proteins. I didn't care about anything else. And now I'm like, what about the multis? What about the omegas? What about, electrolytes and greens and reds and like all these things that actually make a huge impact on the way you feel and perform and look and all of those things. And I think that's what we started to realize as a company is like, where do we go from here? Because we have a pretty solid sports nutrition line, although we are looking to improve that as well. But what new products can we bring to the market? And that's what we're looking into next year, doing a lot more health and wellness products that are, and I hope to be like, some of the best on the market in terms of formulations as well. Because I do want to stay true to, transparent labels and efficacious ingredients and good dosages and things like that. Because at the end of the day, I'm a consumer. I don't want to put something in my body that I think isn't going to work. And, I study this stuff a ton. So when I see something launch and I'm like, man, that's just not what I want it to be. It's like, that's where I like to like tweak things and make them better. Because at the end of the day, you're really into the research more than even I am. There's new ingredients coming out all the time. And there's new formulas and new things. And it's like trying to keep up with that market because I think in the beginning, like obviously Axe Sledge started about 4 years ago. They did set the stage for a lot of the sports performance products. Like if you look at some of the non-Sempres that have launched and even the carb powders, a lot of them are very similar to ours. And I'm not saying they copied us because I hate when people blame people for copying them because it's like, you know what, there's only so many ingredients and like, come on, like it's just.
There's certain dosages, there's certain ingredients we're allowed to use. They're popular ingredients. We're all going to just have different riffs on them, but they're all going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah, because, and at the same time, you never know how long someone's been working on that formula. And all of a sudden it launches around the same time and you're like, oh, it's about the same. It's like, I didn't even see that formula before it launched and I already had, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do see us moving more into the mainstream in terms of like, obviously, we have a few flavor collabs that have done extremely well for us, but at the same time, those have never carried our brand. Like, of course, they're successful and popular, but like we also have other flavors and things that do just as well. Our whiskey cola, for example, does extremely well. And we just relaunched that because, the whole Jack Daniels thing. But, I think just Seth has always just stayed true to himself. And, he'll never put out a product that he's like, oh, I would never take this, or I would never, you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't take
Right.
everything we have, but it's like at the same time, it resembles him and his, his beliefs, you know what I mean, in his community. So, and we also want feedback from our audience. So I ask people all the time, whether it's our athletes, whether it's our demo crew, like, hey, what do you guys want to see from us? What are you taking right now from another company? Because I'm not dumb. I don't believe our athletes are only taking our supplements,
Right.
I'm like, hey, what are you taking now that maybe we could take and make better? And I don't want to say copy, but I mean, there's so many categories we haven't been into. You look at brands like Core and NutriBio who have lines that it's like, dude, what are you going to launch next year? Because you have so much, it's like, and eventually you probably get to that point, but it's like, I also think that, like we just said, I mean, you can reformulate, make things better all the time. And I think it's just a matter of like, balancing all of that and launching new stuff and new flavors, things like that. So
Cool. Yeah, about the, I remember when the whiskey cola label first dropped. I think it came across when Justin and I were doing one of our sessions, and I just thought, and him and I are both bourbon and whiskey aficionados, as the listeners and and I just thought that's awesome. But I'm wondering, does Jack Daniels give enough of a crap about dietary supplement industry in general, or they're the most popular selling whiskey in the world? So if they see a supplement that just kind of has a logo that is kind of familiar to theirs, are they going to do anything about it? And so, obviously, they may have them or they may not have. I don't know if you can even, get into that, or you want to get into that. But the brand is the look of the whiskey cola has changed, and I need to try that. I still need.
Oh
to
yeah,
try
we'll have to. Yeah, it's something that obviously they reached out and they're like, hey, this looks way too close to our bottle. If it was, just an email. I wasn't actually here at the time, but I didn't know about it, and I think it's pretty. I guess the curls, when you have like around the label, I guess they patented those, so you can't copy.
Oh, okay.
So I guess there were certain elements, and they were. It'd have been cool if they did a collab with us or something, because that would have been awesome, but it just didn't work out. So we ended up rebranding. And honestly, now I like the new branding more. I think it fits our brand more. I think it's a little bit more eye catching. It's got that black and gold, and I think it's just a more premium feel to it. So the flavor's still the same, but just a different logo, different branding and stuff like that. But it's still
for
cool.
anybody that's curious, that's what.
Yeah.
There we go.
And obviously having it in 3 different products is pretty funny, because then people can stack them or whatever. And, it's something that's pretty big.
Yeah. And I've always liked the names of the stuff y'all have come up with too. Unicorn Blood. It's fun things like that. Shark Bite. Very clever on the.
I would say the only issue with that is like how many questions we get on like, hey, what does Shark Bite taste like? It's like, oh, I wish we had the flavor name on there somewhere, Whereas other ones are pretty
parentheses or something.
Yeah.
Okay, getting into the formulation side of things now. You mentioned the Reds product earlier. That was something Gerhard and I had kind of talked about previously. I guess walk us through your mindset of going through that. Let me pull it up.
I think so I've tried a lot of reds and greens myself, experimenting with, and obviously we already had a greens product. So everybody knows First Form's Opti Reds and Opti Greens, and I don't want to like shit on that product by any means. It's one of the most top selling especially for that brand. I mean, they're globally renowned, brand. So they do really well with that. So what I wanted to do was make it fully transparent, I wanted this to be a performance-based reds. So essentially, like, you get your fruits, you get your antioxidants, your nutrients, but you also get things that help with performance and recovery. That was like my main goal. I wanted this to be kind of like a hybrid sports performance and health and wellness product. So that's why you see things in here like the Vita Cherry Sport, like the beetroot and the Synactive and things like that. And we also kind of wanted to, I guess, like make it kind of go well with our greens. So our greens already had, like probiotics, even though this one has probiotics as well. But we wanted to put prebiotics in there. So that's why we use the fibrous. I think, I believe we are the first, at least sports nutrition brand, to use fibrous in a product. So that's kind of where that went. And I know a lot of brands do the reds and greens together in a supplement. And I'm just not the biggest fan of that, because I just don't feel like you're getting enough of either one. And I know it is probably a little bit more expensive for people to, buy both of them. But then at the end of the day, you're getting I guess, better dosages, and like goes back to like, the quality of the formula. I wanted this to just be like a powerhouse Reds product. And I think that's probably why, it's doing well. And I really enjoy it. I actually take it post workout as like a recovery product to help with blood flow and, get more nutrients, stuff like that. And then Synactim, I've always been a fan of. I've always wanted to use that ingredient. I've been experimenting with it because I know, like, Gerhard he works for New Life Science now. And I've always been a huge fan of that ingredient. And I felt like because that's supposed to be taken daily, it almost does well in a Reds because, like, you're taking it daily, right? It's not just going to be in a pre-workout, and it helps with, muscle regeneration, ATP regeneration. So that's what I wanted this to be. And also, I think it tastes pretty great for being a naturally sweetened product because it tastes like a juice to me. It's not like, and it does mix really well with the greens too. So it was kind of like, it just made sense for us to do that. And like I said, this is another one where I put out I did the formula, sent it out, and got the price back, and I was like, this is one expensive product. Like, for being a Red, this thing is, it's expensive. So, because, we had the phyto serve in there, which is actually equal 150 is 2 servings of fruit in terms of phytonutrient content. So those ingredients really added up. And then the digestive super is a pretty cool ingredient because it's, a combination of digestive enzymes plus. So another goal of mine with this product, I didn't mention, obviously a lot of people stack Reds and greens together, but I wanted to make this product so good that you could just take it on its own and you didn't really need the greens if you didn't want them. So it wasn't like hey, you guys have to stack these two. It's like, hey, if you guys want a more performance-based supplement, like, here you go. But if you just want the greens, you can get the greens. Like, it's not, obviously we do pitch them together, but it's never going to be like, oh, you have to take this one as well as this one. Because as a consumer, I don't really like that when one's underdosed and the other one's, and then you stack them and it's like, yeah, but I just want one product,
Yeah.
So to me, I think Reds, and I even talked to Joey from Glaxon about this, I think Reds are honestly more beneficial than greens for a lot of different reasons, and especially when you're doing like great doses of certain ingredients. Obviously, it's all about the formulation, but I do think there's a ton of benefits to Reds powders, depending on how they're made.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And just from the how do I want to phrase this? From the research side of things, far more research I feel like has been done on pomegranate extracts, cranberry powders, blueberry extracts than all the common greens that we see in greens formula. So yeah, spirulina is probably the only one that's got a considerable amount of data behind it. And so I can see that being that, some of the mushroom extracts, that makes sense. But I mean, broccoli, 4.5 milligrams of broccoli powder, 4.5 milligrams of spinach, is that conferring any, real world amount of benefit? Sure, we can talk about polyphenols, antioxidants, some naturally occurring nitrates, maybe, but they're in such trivial amounts. I don't think they're going to do, diddly poo, to quote the old New Orleans Saints head football coach. But yeah, I mean, I like this lineup of ingredients, the dosages at them. The question I have for you is, you said you like it post-workout for the recovery benefits. Obviously, there's some research on Vita Cherry and some other, tart cherry powders and cherry fruits like that. Are you concerned with too many antioxidants post-workout that it may blunt some of those training adaptations?
Yeah, no, I have heard that argument. And I think because these are all natural ingredients and they're from fruit and things like that, I wouldn't be too worried about it because there's no Spectra in here, right? Which is a pretty high, antioxidant. There's no vitamin C, like crazy dosages of vitamin C. Like, I think certain things like that I try to stay away from. But in terms of blood flow and just getting, like, I've been taking this. I didn't really intend on taking it post-workout, but I just have been. And I noticed my recovery has just been so much better. Like, I don't know, it's probably just me, maybe anecdotally noticing that. But like, I just did legs yesterday, and normally I'm sore for a couple days, and I'm not sore at all today. So I don't know what it is, but I know that from a blood flow perspective, and this is something that Seth Ferosi really believes in, whether it's bro science or not, doesn't really matter. But it's like getting, the blood flow, the nutrients into the muscles as quickly as possible. So I normally take this and then eat my post-workout meal. But I have heard the argument, and I think there's got to be more research done on that because I don't know if we really know. Because I know there's even research on NSAIDs about, blocking the inflammatory response, and that, after exercise, it's good to get inflammation, right? Because you want that response. But,
Right.
at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be a pro bodybuilder. You know what I mean? I just want to work out, feel good. And this is something that's been helping me a ton. And, people make the argument too for that, but it's like, then why is your pre-workout have X amount of vitamin C for the nitrates then? You know what I mean? Like there's certain things that you just doesn't make sense. And I don't think everybody, you see some pretty jacked bodybuilders that are taking whatever. They don't know, they don't know anything about supplements. And it's like, they're just taking whatever. So yeah, I mean, I don't take my multi plus this after I train, things like that. But I do try to, because I work out at night, I try to take something like this and then also take some other ingredients to help me calm down because I don't want to be up all night. So, I do a non-stim pre-workout. I do theanine. I do ashwagandha, things to help me kind of calm down after the training. Because I do think above all else, the nutrition, the sleep, the training is probably the most important things,
Yeah, I would agree with that. And to the point about, you're right about the NSAIDs. I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago now, they did a meta-analysis that came out on antioxidants in and around the workout. And like hypertrophy seems to be the metric that is least affected by the antioxidant supplementation. Power generation, I think, strength may suffer more, but as from like the aesthetic standpoint, you're pretty fine from it with everything.
I mean, I'm all for optimizing, but I think there's certain nuances, especially with the research. And this is something I learned from my college degree, not even that I did my master's, but number one, there's publication biases. So if they don't find anything, they probably won't get published. They only like to publish, significant results. So I think you got to take it with a grain of salt, everything you read. And I know you know this, but like, people love to read headlines. They love to see TikToks and social media posts and everybody, portraying all these things about whether it's supplements or nutrition or whatever. It's like everyone wants to have it like be like a cult. And like, it's just like you just have to look further into it and experiment with yourself because there's everybody's different. And just because something works in a certain study under like all these conditions doesn't mean it's going to apply to real life. So that's something that kind of gave me a, bad taste in my mouth in terms of research. Cause I'm like, man, you can do this great study and do all this work and then have it never be seen, So, I don't know. I do like to read the research and I do like to, take that into a consideration, but if you're really like an evidence-based practitioner, you take into account of the person's preferences, their experiences, your own knowledge, and as well as the research. So you don't just focus on, oh, hey, I'm just going to be the supplement nerd who never works out, never trains, but knows everything. You know what I mean? Like you have to put it into practice. And at the end of the day, like that's kind of what it's about. But
Agreed. Okay, so you headed up the Reds. What's one of the other recent ones? Because there's a couple of products I'd like to get into just to see what the methodology was, but they may have been put together before you were.
Yeah, and I don't just so you know, like I don't really like speaking on products I didn't formulate.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I want to make sure
there's questions that I can never answer because I didn't do it. But I mean, since I've been like kind of heading up this area, I've been doing. Pumpies was my first one that we launched, so that was a pretty cool one for me because Seth really wanted to do a pump product because, to be honest, like there's really not that many on the market. Like there are a few, but this is something that we wanted to, like this product. There's only so much you can do with a pump cap, right? And we didn't really want to use nitrates. Nitrates are super effective, and I am a fan of them. For me, they're a little bit almost too effective sometimes because I have low blood pressure, so taking more nitrates makes me feel like crap.
Yeah.
But I do extremely well with citrulline, nitrosogene, things like that. So we really wanted this to be as well dosed as possible because I'm a big fan of vasodrive, but most of the time it's 254. It's not the 508. Not to say you're not going to get benefits from that because, like I said, if the studies are only done on 508, how do you know if 254 is not going to work? Like things like that. But so we wanted to go with that. So this is my first product that we released, and we've had really good feedback on. Before we even launched this, I had so many athletes test it because they're bodybuilders and they know their body. Like they know how they feel. Like they're very conscious of what's going on. And like if they try something new, they're regimented. Whereas if you're an average Joe who doesn't track their nutrition, doesn't drink water, just likes to hit the gym, you're probably not going to know what's happening, especially with a pump capsule, right? Because I mean, you're not really feeling like nitrosogene has some other cognitive benefits, right? But at the same time, you got to know if it's going to make a difference in your routine. So we had people stack this with demo day, take it on its own, stack it with hydraulic, things like that. So we wanted this to be like pretty much one of our most stackable products because you can stack it with any of our pre-workouts, especially SuppEngr because SuppEngr doesn't really have much pump in it. So, I mean, obviously, many of these ingredients, but I mean, all of these have been shown to at least support nitric oxide synthesis in some way. So we tried to hit on some different pathways, and our goal was to make it a longer lasting pump. And also, like, let's say you're going to get on stage, you don't want to take hydraulic because it has the beta alanine, the niacin. It's going to make you all red and, all that stuff and itch. And
Agreed.
we wanted this to be like a, pure pump product. And it gets confusing because people are like, well, is it better than hydraulic? Is it different than hydraulic? Like, we had to answer so many questions on that level because people don't understand it. And a lot of people do stack it with it. So yeah, I mean, nitrogenine is in hydraulic, but I mean, that's why I say, you take 3 caps of this and then only, because it's a 5 cap serving, which is another thing that we didn't know how many people would want to take 5 capsules, but hey, I mean, it's been selling, it's been doing well. And I think I'm a big fan of epicatagons. I'm not sure like how well they do with the, myostatin inhibition and things like that and muscle building, but like I said, they do have some research on supporting nitric oxide synthase and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any questions about it, but.
Yeah, it just the capsule size is that was something I was going to talk to you about because I've got one client of mine. I put together a formula. He says, don't make it any more than 3 caps. Our demographic will not take more than 2 or 3 caps. We've tried doing 4. We've tried doing 5. These products never sell. So, and there's such a limitation with capsules. To which like something like nitrosogene and vasodrive are ideally fitted for. But if you're trying to do something like a collagen product in capsule form or joint health, you got to be real careful or highly selective. So you either include a bunch of ingredients, but you underdose them, or you've got 3 ingredients that are fully well dosed. So and I like to put, at least maybe 4 to 6 ingredients in a supplement, unless we're talking something bare bones like a D3K2 or something like that.
Yeah, I think not to cut you off. I think this product though, we knew it was going to be pretty niche. We knew we weren't targeting the mainstream with this. We knew it was going to be the bodybuilders who knows what else. They're taking a ton of stuff in terms of like, you look at some of the health products. Like I think it's like a Pro Complete Health. I forgot how many capsules that thing is. But some of those health products are like 8 capsules, 12 capsules.
Or something. Yeah,
it's just crazy. So I think because we knew we were targeting a more niche consumer, we were willing to do that. I think when we formulate like our liver or a gut or something like that, we do want to keep it relative, like 3 to 4 capsules. You know what I mean? But with this, it was like, I think we were aiming for 4 capsules, but I think our manufacturer said the nitrogen they had like was pretty fluffy. Oh, sorry. And that it was just taking up too much space. And so we had to push it to 5. And we weren't willing to back down the doses because like, what else do we lower? I mean, there's nothing I couldn't see lowering any of it. But I mean, it worked. Like I said, I think, and also like, it's 5 capsules, but then we can say like, hey, if you're taking hydraulic, then take 2 capsules of this or 3 capsules of this. Like, it's not, you don't have to stack it, but if you are doing, whereas if you take it with 7th gear, do 5 caps because it has no pump in it anyway. So if you want more pump, here you go. So hopefully that makes sense. But I think because it was such a niche consumer who's going to buy this product, we were for it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. With your methodology, when you're formulating products, and I guess the company line is with it as well, do you try to avoid redundancy, or is it to where your consumers, because another client, just this is the way they told me to approach it when I'm dealing with them, is that, hey, we find that most of our consumers aren't looking for stacked products. So if there's overlap from 1, 2, or up to 3 ingredients in a formula, we're okay with that. If they're buying a pre-workout, it's okay if it's got some of the same ingredients in the non-stim version, or if you have a collagen supplement and there's a beauty supplement, chances are they're not going to be buying both of those. So you can use some of the same ingredients if you want to. Whereas like my natural inclination is to make the entire line stackable to where there's as little redundancies as possible in there. What's been your experience so far with, the Axe and Sledge user base and and as well as your own personal formulation philosophy?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because like you said, some of these products I didn't formulate. And I think when they're like, especially with hydraulic and ignition switch, when you look at those 2 formulas, you could tell that they're probably supposed to be stacked. It's almost a given. Whereas when the stuff I've been creating, like I said, I didn't want it to have a ton of redundant, like obviously hydraulic does have nitrogen, so does pumpies. But we don't have vasodrive. So I think I try to at least look at ingredients that maybe they're newer, we haven't used yet. They're going to provide a different benefit to the consumer. That, like this product, like vasodrive AP, okay, it's a milk based, right? So you do have a milk allergy. So we don't want to put that in a mainstream pre-workout because we don't want people with milk allergies to not be able to take that. So you also have to consider that as well on certain ingredients. But it's hard because like from my personal philosophy, I do like to just buy one supplement and not have to stack it. but I do understand like the whole, like, hey, you can stack it though. And I think that, it's just all based on the personal user, because some people love stacking things. Some people just want to get one thing. But yeah, I don't think our pre-workouts have the most redundancies, I'd say, but the rest of our line, there's really not much, because every product's pretty unique in that sense, and different. So, but at the same time, if you want to double up on some dosages of maybe a certain ingredient, like like I say, if you took a full serving of this plus hydraulic, you'd be getting like 2.5 grams of trash. Like it's probably not going to be like, it's not going to harm you. You know what I mean? It's probably just going to be better for the pump or whatever. But, you know, our consumers just love to stack things because they love the flavors. They love to get like we had the basics line, and that's just single ingredient stuff. Like I've seen people be like, oh, I take 2 scoops of hydraulic and then I put in 2 scoops of citrulline. I'm like, dude, you're beating a dead horse. Like you don't need that much, but hey, I'm not going to stop them. That's something they want to do. So I don't know. That's tough, because from a pre-workout standpoint, I do believe that they should be able to be stacked, because you know what? Like I only take a non-stim pre, but some people like to add a little stim. So it just depends on that. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's just a little bit, it's hard to, formulate for the masses. And then you have your own little like things that you like to do. Like you and I are probably more opt to like make our own stack, whereas like someone else just wants like just give me your pre-workout. Like that's all I want,
Yeah. Agreed.
That's why I love our basics, because I know you mentioned earlier the mushrooms. We have the Pico 2 as a basic, and I put that with the reds because number one, it helps with the flavor. It's unflavored, obviously. Yeah. And number two, you're getting the benefits from the mushrooms, and you should be taking that daily as well. So, it's an education curve on that one too, because we didn't put that in a pre-workout because we knew it would the taste would be very challenging to cover up. So,
yes. Earlier you mentioned that, like most people, when you first get into, fitness, your main concern is protein powder, pre-workout. And then as you get further into your years, or just your time spent in training and learning about supplements, you gravitate towards other venues where it could be joint health, could be longevity supplements, could be nootropics. Where do you find your natural tendencies are going these days, as far as interest in either formulating products or just kind of scouring through the research?
Yeah, I think 2 things. One, I'm considering our athletes and what they want and look for. So something like a liver. It may not be something I ever take, but I think a liver supplement would be huge for them. And then for me, though, personally, like this is my own, like if I could make 2 supplements tomorrow, which we actually, hopefully are working on for next year, would be a gut product and then also a stress relief. I think stress is so big. And I think that if you're stressed out, I don't care if your goal is weight loss, muscle building, strength, it doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to perform, in your mindset and your mental health, right? It was just World Mental Health Day yesterday. And I think those, like, I remember trying for the first time Glaxon's, what is it called? Serenity, I think. It's their like stress relief. That thing hits hard. Okay, number one. Yeah. But number two, and then I started to dive into the research behind these ingredients, and I was like, man, this is a space that, like, why isn't more people making these products? Like, number one, because they're so beneficial. And I think ashwagandha is one of the most underrated, not only health products, but actually performance products that you can take, because cortisol management is so big, and the way people are, on their phones all the time and on social media and work and all this stuff, it's like you're always just like bombarded with things. So I think stuff to help you kind of wind down. I'm not a big fan of, like, I take some sleep supplements, but it's like, even Xylaria, I think, is a really cool ingredient from New Live Science that I want to hopefully add into a formula. So that's why I'm excited to go to Supply Side West and kind of learn more about what offerings there are. And same with like things like curcumin, So I've been mainly looking at like single ingredient things. They would be a part of a bigger formula. But what I like to do is test them out on their own rather than getting a product that has 10 different ingredients, because then what do you know what's working? Whereas if you take theanine on its own, okay, how do you feel? And you take, whatever it is, you can kind of get an assessment of like, okay, is this really helping me, or is this not really doing anything for me? And then also like, I'm really big on people trying things out. So I really try to get, as many people as possible to try something before we launch it, because I want to know how different people feel on it. So that's the biggest thing for me. But stress, gut, even like brain, I'm really into like non-stim nootropic things, because I'm not a big caffeine consumer. I do consume some caffeine, but I'm really big on just like nootropics and things like that. So something along those lines. I'm pretty big fans of products like that. So
Perfect. With the ashwagandha, do you have a preferred form? So like we've got within the past couple of years, so KSM's been kind of the one that's been around the longest, but then we had
Mhm.
Sensoril come out, we've got Shodan, there's New Ganda that's out. There might be one other one that I'm forgetting, but those are kind of like the main four that we
Mhm.
see commonly used, at least in our space. Do you have a favorite one, or is it more situation scenario dependent?
So I haven't the only one or the only two I haven't really experimented with is Sensoril and Uganda. I haven't really
Mhm.
tried those. Shodan though, I'm a big fan if you're very stressed out. Because if you want something that hits really hard, because I remember it was in Serenity as well as Arms Race had it in one of their products as well. And that was something I would take like before bed.
Yeah.
Because then that would really help me wind down. I think as a daily driver, if I know some people hate that term, I think just KSM 66 is cool for me. I normally
Yeah.
do 600 milligrams per day, and that just helps with stress management. I do
Mhm.
take it post workout, whether I work out in the morning or at night, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like it helps me really wind down. I don't know if it's placebo, but I've noticed a significant benefit, and it doesn't make me too tired. So if I am doing stuff later on in the day, or if I'm, because I remember taking Serenity, like I said, when I was working for PricePlow, and I just remember like not wanting to do anything. I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
I'm
you're
stressed.
crashed. You're
Yes, I like crashed hard, and I think there's a ton of research on KSM 66 and in general, but I think they're all beneficial. It just depends on what like product it's going to be in, and like when you take it. So
right.
and obviously different dosing, right? Like because Shodan's so strong that you don't really need that much. So maybe it's
Mhm.
better if you want a smaller dose of something. But yeah, something like that is I know I go with KSM.
Yeah, that's my typical one. Like you said, if it's daily activity stuff I'm doing, it's going to be KSM 66, somewhere between 300 and 600 milligrams. If it's a
Mm,
sleep formula, or it's like a specifically designed stress anxiety relief support product, I may verge into sensory territory, but even then, I'll probably lean more into the KSM just because there's more research behind it.
mhm.
And there's some other things that I can hit on different other pathways. So I could do some theanine. You could do the magnolia bark like Joey did in Serenity. You can put in, some 5-HTP or some other like feel good, happy stuff in there to kind
Mhm.
of modulate, or even some other adaptogens, Bacopa, rhodiola, go-to cola, any of that stuff. So
Even rhodiola. So like I haven't experimented with that too much, but I remember you know how there's like Rodeo Prime, which is like a
mhm.
stronger form.
Yeah,
Man, I didn't I remember trying that and I just didn't really feel good on it, but I also am pretty sensitive to things because
yeah.
like I'm obviously kind of a smaller human. So like I don't really I know some things hit people harder than others.
Hmm.
And rodeo as a whole I didn't really feel too great on, but I know it's like got it has a lot of research behind it and a lot of health benefits. But for some reason I do really good on ashwagandha, theanine, um, and even like a ZMA before bed or something simple like that. But like those things have been
Yeah.
helping me a ton in terms of sleep quality and things like that. So um yeah, I mean, also, I think another thing I've been kind of experimenting with is also like berberine.
Hmm.
Pretty simple, but like I think controlling your blood sugar responses, especially after meals and stuff like that. I think it's even more beneficial on a bulking phase when you're trying to really push calories,
Yep.
to kind of stay a little bit more insulin sensitive. Because obviously, I follow like Stan Efferding, and he's really big on controlling blood glucose and going for
Yeah.
walks, things like that. And obviously, that's beneficial. But I think even that ingredient, I've never had dihydroberberine. I heard it's pretty strong. Never had that, but I normally just get the normal like berberine. But
Yeah, that's what I do. Like you mentioned earlier, just going for the single ingredient stuff. It's almost like I have a
mhm,
standing order with NutriCost off Amazon because they've got everything you could possibly want in individual capsules or bulk powders or whatever. And so I've got a bottle
mhm,
of if you open our pantry, it's really just supplements and protein bars and protein powders. There's no actual food in there. Um, but it's like there's a whole shelf of just NutriCost basics in there. So I've got a
yeah,
berberine bottle, I've got KSM, I've got a bag of theanine, creatine monohydrate powder from that, and all of that stuff. But I mean, that's the best thing. And I don't know. So I kind of look at dihydroberberine and glucovantage as more of, if you're pressed for cap space and you can't go with the regular berberine, because regular berberine
mhm.
you need it 600 milligrams a couple of times a day. Dihydroberberine 100 to 200 milligrams. If you're really pressed for cap space, go to that. They're both going to be effective. You just have to take a much smaller dose of one. And there's some things about berberine leading to GI upset with some people. I've never experienced it. I've given it
No, I
to
never have
Sandy
either.
and some other people. I don't know where this is coming from. Kind of like the whole,
Creatine HCl thing.
yeah, that or caffeine paraxanthine, which that's a topic for another day when that ingredient gets a little more popular. We can get into that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's and rodeo prom. I haven't tried it. we put it in the Unbound pre-workout, but I never got to try it on its own. I just wanted regular rhodiola. I like regular rhodiola. That's where most of the research on the ingredient is, that naturally occurring ratio of,
Yeah.
3-2 or 3-1 Rosavins to Salidroside, which is the same thing with KSM. I think that's why I like it more than the other ones. It retains
with
those
analytes and stuff.
that same natural ratio as you find it in the root in nature. It's not kind of artificially bulked up with higher with analyte content from the leaf material that Sensoril and I'm believing Shodan does the same thing too.
Yeah, I think another thing that's super interesting is the nootropic space, because like I prefer citicoline for actual focus. Like citicoline neurofactor to me, well, it's called Cognitique now. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Yep.
Those two ingredients, like if I have that, like citicoline, neurofactor, tyrosine, like that's one of the best like combinations I can get for in terms of focus and like having it being a non-stim.
Yeah.
Because the alpha GPC, I don't know what it is. I never really feel it that much. And they say there's some performance benefits, but most of the time, I don't think you're getting enough from a pre-workout or really any, product. And the choline bitartrate, like, again, you have to have a pretty big dose of that. And I never really feel anything on it. So, like, citicoline, all those expensive ingredient, it's one of my favorites in terms of just single ingredient things to take. It's just really cool. And, like, things like, things that enhance your mood and stuff like that. Like, I'm super interested in those things. I think your mental health, your well-being is what's going to keep you consistent throughout this whole health and fitness journey if you're looking at it in the long term. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But,
it's interesting you brought up the alpha GPC versus CDP choline thing, because I was just talking with Joey 2 weeks ago now, maybe. About once a week, I'm sending him a message about something or other. Either I'll come across a study or I've got a question, because when it comes to like ingredient pricing, sourcing, flavoring, that is a major limitation in my thing, just because I don't have the experience with it. I need to get more of that. So if I'm looking for a cost, like, hey, Joey, what's a back of the envelope, rough estimate on this price per kilo on this ingredient, or is this flavoring really going to jack up this product or whatever? He's always super helpful. So I don't know if he ever listens to this, but Joey, you're awesome. Thank you for always being such a good quality human being. But he was saying, something like alpha GPC or even something like phosphatidylcholine, it's something that you kind of need to take. The benefits extend more with like regular usage. It's not as an acute like spinning up of the neurons and all of that stuff. And which that just anecdotally, that's what I've always felt. I take CDP choline, I feel it within 45 minutes at most, if I've got food in me or whatever else in me. Same thing with neurofactor. I've loved that back to the first time I tried that ingredient. It must have been 4 years ago now. Those two always hit. If you haven't tried Brain Factor 7 yet, the silk fibroin peptides from the little silkworms, that's another great one too. At 200 milligrams, that's really, really solid.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense there for that, because there's so many ingredients that people throw in a pre-workout that's like, you really should be taking those daily to get any benefits. Like Pico 2, I remember taking that consistently. And after, I think it was like 2 to 4 weeks, I felt like major improvements in the gym, but it wasn't like hey, it hits me like right now. It was like accumulation. And I mean, that's where I think people kind of shit on supplements a bit, is because they're like, well, I didn't feel it. It's like, there's some things you just got to take. Do you feel your fish oil working? No, but you'll get blood work done. Hopefully your levels are a little bit better, or multi or whatever. It's like, it's hard to like, because people just don't want to take things every single day unless it's a health thing. And that's why it's cool to like make different products that people don't like. If you do a REDS pattern and you sneak in some performance supplements or performance ingredients, it's like, well, you're taking that daily anyways. Like, just, you know what I mean? Add that to your stack and you're good to go. But that side of things, like you said, the flavoring, I got the first experience with that by going to a couple manufacturers, and that's an interesting process. I mean, they're just kind of like naturally talented at it. It's like first they kind of take all the ingredients right, and they make them neutral, so it doesn't taste like anything, or at least as close to that as possible. And then you kind of flavor on top of that. So it's like using different bitter blockers and things like that. And man, it's like just watching those people work and like do different flavors. It's really fun to see, because it's like you want your stuff to taste good. I don't care who you are or what form. Like obviously you and I will probably take anything, even if it doesn't taste good. But like most consumers want their stuff to taste pretty decent. So.
Yeah, I mean it's a little running gag that I'll do is I'll just open up a bag of powder. I'll bring it to Santa and say, "Here, try this." And I've gotten this close to getting smacked so many times because I've made her try like grapeseed extract, pine bark extract, rhodiola, raw rhodiola powder.
I think one of the worst I tried was what was it? Selflow 6. That tastes terrible.
Yeah.
That tastes like dry, like wine, but in the worst way. Like That's a capsule product for sure. That tastes so bad. And then I don't know what it is. Aminos are super popular in the space, but I hate the taste of aminos. Absolutely hate them.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
think certain ones taste decent, but I always do electrolytes during my training. I never
Mhm.
really take aminos. Not that they're not helpful. Obviously they are. But I eat plenty of protein that I don't really need them. And
Yeah.
I like electrolytes over anything else. I just hate that like amino, like you don't want to talk about like that. Just like
Yeah.
feels like you're producing urea or something and you're not.
What
But
what kind of flavor profile do you like most with your products? So it's you can get like the super sweet where you have like the blue raspberry. That I hate that ingredient that flavor so much. I cannot explain how much. Rainbow candy, lemon lime. Do you like more refreshing stuff, tropical stuff, the sweeter side of the spectrum, dragon fruit stuff?
yeah, so we actually have a flavor coming out soon. That's probably my favorite flavor ever we've ever done. And once I tell you what I prefer, you'll probably get a hint of what it is. I
Mhm.
like citrus anything. So whether it's mango, orange, lemon, things that are more refreshing. Like I don't really like super sweet stuff. I also don't, although there's evidence, I do take sucralose. I do prefer more natural things like natural
Mhm.
flavors, natural colors, natural sweeteners if it fits it. Like certain things you just cannot flavor with natural sweeteners, like a amino,
Mhm.
for example. Like that is so hard to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I do prefer citrusy things and more refreshing things versus like very strong. Like our ices are a little bit stronger, but it's because we're trying to make it taste like an icy. And I
Right.
don't drink those every day. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I'm just not into that flavor. But I know we did like last year we launched our sour series, which was like kiwi lime and blue raz lemonade. Which I know you don't like blue raz, but that one was actually
Mhm.
awesome just because it was sour and then you had like that lemonade. It just kind of added different elements.
Yeah, blend it
Um,
with something, like, Primeval used to, they still do, it's a flavor called Smashberry, and
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a blue raz lemon kinda
Hmm.
vibe to it, and so I can tolerate that, but if it's, like, traditional Cellucor, like, blue raspberry kinda flavor or whatever, BSN,
Yeah.
I you
I
couldn't
do
pay me
agree
enough to drink
because, like, I know you talk about it quite a bit. Like my least favorite, no matter what it is, no matter what brand, I hate cherry. I hate grape unless it's a specific grape. It has to be like I think it'd be cool to do a green grape because no one ever does that flavor.
Yeah,
I hate like normal like grape and then cherry or like my two probably like I don't want to try those kind of thing.
yeah,
There are some cherry limes out there and things like that that are good, but like it just brings me back to my childhood and just tastes like medicine. And I'm just like not into it. I'm just like,
yeah,
it's just not. Yeah. I mean, it's got to be specific. And yeah, those are my favorite ones. So like anything like pineapple, mango, like orange,
mhm.
just like anything citrusy, really.
Yeah,
Big
you
fan.
might wanna try I just bought a tub of this off Amazon about 2 weeks ago, it's Ghost Gamer. And it's their Sonic Ocean Water flavor. I've never had a
Mm,
regular Sonic Ocean Water, so I have no idea what it tasted like going into it.
hmm.
But that is really good. That's nice, refreshing, citrusy, like lemon lime almost kind of thing. It's
Hmm.
really good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm into, which is what I mean. Even Seth likes a lot of those flavors too. So it's tend
Mhm.
to be like what we gravitate towards a little bit more. But like, yeah, it depends on the product too, but I'm not like certain products I'm not picky with because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna slam them and it doesn't really matter. But like, I do want our proteins to taste really good. I do want,
Right.
you know, certain products to be really good. But
We all have a electrolyte only because those are starting to become a little bit more popular in our space. Just a pure electrolyte formula coming out.
oh, we already have one, Electrolytes Plus.
Did I miss
That
that?
was another one that released this year.
I was going through the intro workout and I didn't see it. I did not
Oh,
mean to
maybe
speak
it's
out of turn then.
it is sold out right now, I think.
Okay, that might be.
It's called Electrolyte Plus. I'm sure like Natural Body Inc. has it or whatever, but
Okay.
we are doing hopefully stick packs in the future. So like single, stick packs you can travel with. But we do have that one in lemon lime and strawberry kiwi. It's naturally sweetened and flavored, very light on the flavor profile. So if you ever do try it out and you're like, you mix it with a ton of water, you probably won't really even taste it. If
Yeah.
you really want to like get a good flavor, it's probably 10 to 12 ounces of water, which isn't a ton,
Hmm.
but it's like full comprehensive hydration panel there. And then you got some
Yeah.
benefits or added things like taurine, coconut water, um, ionic trace minerals, which is really cool because most of the time you don't get this from your diet at all.
Correct.
So yeah, pretty straightforward, but like something that we wanted to do because obviously Bob does Ironmans. We have some people that run things like that, and I think hydration is big for anybody. I don't really care what you do. I think this is
Yeah.
something I actually drink every morning. So I don't take caffeine right when I wake up. I do this, and then I do
Mhm.
caffeine probably I'd say like 3 hours after waking up because then it hits me a little harder.
Right.
But
Well, also to your credit, you've got decent dosages of the electrolytes in their bioavailable forms. So often we
mhm.
see like 25 milligrams of magnesium, 100 milligrams of sodium, 40 milligrams of potassium or something like that. You've got quality and better dosages than what most of the
Yeah,
electrolyte
I mean,
products
like,
on the market have.
I know there's some big ones out there. You've probably seen like LMNT and even
Hmm.
Relight from Redmond's Real Salt. Like they have like
Yeah.
nearly a gram of salt. And like, okay, certain athletes, yes, they need a gram of salt. Most people don't. I think this is
Correct.
more of a like middle of the line, like more mainstream electrolyte, but it's still decently
Hmm.
dosed. Like you see some electrolytes out there and they have 100 milligrams of salt, nothing else. Like it's like it's a nutrition panel because there's nothing in there.
Right.
And it's kind of flavoring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is something that we just wanted to like. We got a gram of coconut water in there, which I love coconut water.
Hmm.
I think it smooths it out, makes it taste better. I just like it. And then obviously the pink Himalayan salt for the sodium. Like if you did 2 scoops of this, it's not overwhelming on the flavor, but you're still getting 400 mgs of sodium plus, some other things. So it's like, something that you can dose according to what you want, but it's like nothing crazy.
Yeah. Are y'all starting to see a bigger demand or ask by the consumers for the stick packs? Because I've seen some other companies start to do stick packs of either creatine, electrolytes, and other hydration stuff. Is
Mhm.
that something? Do you think that's going to be another big trend in our space coming up?
I do think convenience is king, especially when you think about supplements, and just
Mhm.
the lifestyle, right? Like if something's more convenient for you, you're going to
Yeah.
be more apt to do it. Whether it's, hey, my gym's 5 minutes down the road, or I got pre-prep meals, but convenience comes with a cost, right? It's always more
Yeah.
expensive. But I think like for certain products like reds, greens, electrolytes, doing stick packs will be really cool because it's going to get consumers to maybe it's just going to be easier on them, whether they're taking it every day or just traveling and they want to bring stuff like this. Like we've
Mhm.
done sample packs in the past, but we've never really sold them. Those are normally like freebies
Mhm.
um, for pre-workouts and greens and stuff like that. But like to actually do the stick packs with the box and all that stuff, like that's something that we're looking into doing for sure. Um, I do think that's especially popular with electrolytes. I mean, you see that everywhere with
Yeah.
like the liquid IV stuff. LMNT, I think, has some of those brands
Mhm.
only have that and they don't
Yeah.
have any tubs, which I'm not a big fan of because, like, hey, if you don't mind carrying a tub, you want to save some money, like, at least have the option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think convenience is king in the industry, and I think people are willing to pay for it. So for sure.
Do you have any idea what the cost in difference, the markup cost to do the stick packs in a 30 serve versus a tub of electrolytes would be, or any other product? Is there like a pretty standard? It's going to cost you, 1.5 times what it normally would cost you to do it because of the extra packaging and steps in the
Mhm.
manufacturing's got to go through.
Obviously, it's more expensive. I couldn't tell you like an exact number. I haven't looked at it that closely, but I know
Hmm.
for sure that like it's all about ordering quantities because you have to
Hmm.
order a decent amount to get a good price. You know what I mean? So if you're at like a smaller level, it's going
Yeah.
to be a lot more challenging to do stick packs, if that makes sense, because the order
Yeah.
quantity like has to be. It's like even doing samples. Like a lot of people ask us like, why don't you have protein samples? It's like, I mean, we could, but number one, protein, terrible margins on that, anyways. But like, yeah, it's so much more money to do the samples. So it's like, I'd rather be in an event and just mix it up and give it to you, or just give you a tub of it, I guess, because at that
Yeah.
point, like some brands do this, they send a tub to a retail store and they're like, hey, just sample it out and don't, you know what I mean? But
Right.
it is a little bit more expensive, but I don't think it's not, at least for where we're at, it's not like unfeasible to do
Hmm.
it. And it does take some more time and like a learning curve to learn. I don't do this part of things because I'm not a designer, but to design the packaging and the boxes and all that stuff, like it's just
Yeah.
another step to the process of like making that happen. So
Excellent. Okay. Going forward, we're in October of 2022 for this recording. If anybody's
mhm.
listening to this months down the line on replay, can you give us a teaser for what's coming up either by the end of this year or first quarter of next year, maybe?
Man, we have a lot, and I don't want to say this to brag, and I can't really say exactly what we have coming, but for Black Friday, it's going to be, I'd say, arguably the biggest release we've ever had, in probably the history of the company.
New
Um,
product, old product, or can
Yeah.
we not say
Well,
yet?
there's new products,
New
there's new
product.
flavors, there's new we're rebranding some stuff.
Hmm.
And what we're really trying to do for next year is to get ahead. We haven't really been in a nice like we're ahead in most for the most part, but like now we're trying to figure out like, how can we be like more planned out of like, hey, this month we're doing limited edition flavor, next month we're doing a product, like mapping out 2023 to be a little more like smoother of like, we know exactly what we're doing when, you know what I mean? And obviously there'll be some, road bumps in the journey to get there, but it's like, we really want to be a little bit more ahead on those things and planned out. So right now what we're doing, like Black Friday's kind of done, like everything's set for that release. And then we have our transformation challenge that kicks off in January. So we want to do some specific products for that. Which you could probably tell if it's like a weight loss thing, kind of what we're looking at, right?
Right.
And then also just some new like fun stuff that we, new accessories, products, things like that, and flavors. And like I said, I think health would be another big focus for us for 2023. But the end of this year, I'm super excited about, just because of the new flavors we have coming and the new product that we have coming that I'm excited for you to see, because I don't know. I want some people to try it out, but I think it's a little bit intense for some people. So
I mean, if you ever need a guinea pig, just feel free to go kick it down.
Yeah, dude, I would not mind sending you some samples and getting feedback, because I'm always open to it.
I'm always up for being a guinea pig. That was my going back to when I first started with supplement stuff. I would get all these sketchy little baggies of powder, and Sandy would look at me. She said, "Do you sure you know what you're doing?" I said, 911, you know the number for it. Just get me. But it's fun. Like you got this little thing of, what am I signing on for? Especially like with pre-workouts, because this is still when you had a little bit of DMAA and some DMHA floating around, and some people might sprinkle some AMP in there that under like juniper berry or some other, your name or something like that. So it's still fun to get those random sample baggies, or Chris at Inspired Nutri ever hits you up and says, "Hey man, you got something inbound." Just
especially from him, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, he's always got some good shit. I love Chris. He always makes me so happy whenever I get a chance to talk to him.
I think another big thing too, which I don't know if you've noticed, but on our labels, we're starting to do like a lot of raised textures and patterns, so a little bit more premium of a feel on these.
Yeah.
Reds was the first one. And then after that, moving forward, like we just launched Plant Fed, has the kind of same, like similar, like premium, like I know I can't even do it. There we go. So a little bit of like doing a little bit higher quality labels, or just different textures and patterns. Not that our labels are always like, they look awesome, but I think just having a better user experience with like being a little bit different on that side. But like, I think we have 9 SKUs launching for Black Friday alone.
Wow.
Which is going to be really cool. Like I said, I can't wait to see what you think, because like I said, I can't say anything. And even before then, we have another big launch coming up this month. We have a launch beginning of November. It's going to be big. And then December, we kind of just have a new flavor that's coming back, which I'm excited for. But there's just a bunch stacked up at the end of the year. It's like we had to figure a lot of things out at the beginning, but then now we're kind of just rolling because we got all this stuff lined up. So it's really exciting for us. And I think this Black Friday will blow Black Friday last year out of the water, just because of like the 2 new products. And then I think the rest are all new flavors, but just big things, I guess.
Outstanding.
I can't say too much. I wish I could.
Oh, no, that's fine. Are y'all anticipating a pretty good haul for Black Friday? Because I know there have been some reports, based on the way the economy's been and all of that, that some of the major retailers, so Amazon, Walmart, they're backing up when they're starting their Black Friday sales, because they're assuming the holiday season shopping is not going to be as prosperous as it typically is. From the supplement side, and I haven't really talked to many other brands about this so far. What's, I guess, kind of the forecast for y'all, the outlook as far as consumer spending going into the last part of the year?
So September is normally pretty slow for us, just because of obviously gearing up for that. And, we've been kind of just like, I don't know what, I think like things have been going pretty well, because we're out of stock on a lot of things. And it's just like people continue to buy. Like our consumers are super loyal, and they aren't that like one-time buyer pre-workout person, and at the same time, we're growing as a brand. And the problem is we have, not the problem, but the I guess what gets a little confusing, we have AAR plus Axe Sledge, and they both always have huge Black Friday releases, right? So that's always a balancing act of like the employees of like who's helping out where and all that stuff. But I think because of the limited edition, this is what I can say, probably the limited edition things that are going to be launching for Black Friday, that's what is going to spike sales, because people are going to want to buy it, because it's not going to come back. It might come back, but it's like it's never guaranteed. So I think because of that, that's what's going to probably push it the more. Like if we just launched a new flavor that wasn't limited edition, it was just kind of like out there, like I don't know if it'd be as big, but I think because of what we're doing, it's going to be huge. And it's kind of funny. Like you'll see, we're launching like 2 very different products the same day, and it's like only us. Like I feel like we're the one brand that could probably pull that off. To do something like on the total ends of the spectrum, like one super mainstream, one super like hardcore.
Yeah.
Like only a few, you know what I mean? So it's interesting. So
cool.
But it'll be fun.
All right.
And the marketing for it, I don't know if you ever watched like our marketing videos, but it's always a lot of fun just to see what we come up with because it's like, it's always funny or like,
Yeah.
stupid, educational. It's just like a mix of a bunch of different things for like
I'm
our
not
marketing
super
videos.
tuned into them though, and this is going back a couple of years, but when Seth released or y'all released it, and Seth was in the video for the homemade,
Yeah.
the mass gainer stuff, I thought that was freaking hysterical.
Hmm.
So I mean, he's got some great showmanship, like most bodybuilders, kind of like
Hmm.
the mainstream big name bodybuilders. They know how to present things and kind of ham it up like a showman would. So if it's anything along that vein, I'll have to either can you send me the clip, or if it's on the YouTube channel or something, I'll check it out there and see it.
Yeah, no, it'll be both those videos because we have two different products, like I said. And I think both of them will have their own kind of like unique marketing to them because
Mhm.
it's crazy we're launching them both at the same time, but it's like they're just going to be so big for us because you could launch one of them, they'd be big, but it's like the fact that we're doing both at once is going to be a balancing act to see like what's, you know what I mean, heavy
Yeah.
marketing, but it'll be fun and it's always a, brainstorming session on like how we're going to pitch these things, but it's like our community's great. They're always, funny, so
Yeah.
they always think of different things, but no, it's gonna be
Cool.
fun. Like I said, I don't want to be like overhype anything. I just
Yeah.
think it's really cool that what we're gonna be releasing, and I think people are gonna. I don't think they're expecting it. I would
Mhm.
say,
Yeah.
but
Well, then we will eagerly look forward to it. I'm excited to
mhm.
see what y'all have, especially with you at the helm now for the product formulations and everything.
Yeah, like I said, I'm super grateful because this is always what I've wanted to do.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's limitations, right? There's supply chain, pricing, things like that.
Right.
Like I could go out and create the most expensive pre-workout on the market, but can I? Like, no. It's
Yeah.
just the business element is something that I need to learn a little bit more about. Because at the end of the day, you got to be profitable. You have to
Correct.
make money, regardless of anybody says anything. It's like like when I don't know if you follow Fitness Forum, he went to Armada and did like this, $80 pre-workout, and it's like uh, he just did it for fun, but it's like
Yeah.
it just goes to show you that like yes, these things add up, and especially with the way the market is right now, you just
Yep.
cannot. You have to work within the limitations and do the best you can. So,
Agreed.
but
In wrapping things up, give us a little bit of an insight into your daily supplement regimen. I'm sure some things kind of get cycled in and out depending on time of
mhm.
year or whatever, but it's kind of like a typical day in the life.
I think right now, so in terms of caffeine, I don't really take any. I do cold brew in the morning, so that's
Hmm.
not really a supplement. But that's my caffeine for the day. I don't really do like a pre workout or anything.
Yeah.
Um, I always take Reds. It's normally post workout. For pre workout, I normally do hydraulic just because I do like. I've always preferred a pump product plus like nootropics because I don't just want pump. It never really works for me. And then I always take electrolytes first thing in the morning. And then throughout the day with my meals, I like pretty regimented. So like I'll do like most people wouldn't do this, but like a multi-capsule with like every meal. So kind of spacing it out. Because
Yeah.
I'm like at least for me, a believer in like split dosing things. So like taking
Hmm.
things at different times a day. So I do that. I also do berberine right now because I'm eating quite a lot of carbs. So I do those with every meal because it's not like I have a meal where I have low carbs. Like I'm probably at least 75 grams of carbs per meal, which is pretty decent amount, right?
Yeah.
And so I do that with every meal. I only have 4 meals a day, but that's what I do. And then I take fish oil at least once or twice a day. I don't think you can overdose on it per se. So I try to do it at least 1 to 2 times a day. And then I take, like I said, Reds. And then electrolytes, I always drink at least 1 to 2 servings. And then protein powder, I kind of just use that as a whenever I need protein. So
Hmm.
like if it's post workout, it's post workout. But if it's like in the morning and I just want to do a smoothie, so it's not like I have a set time. I'm
Hmm.
not like I put the weight down, I go slam my post workout shake.
Yeah.
Um, I do use demo day sometimes, but with how much carbs I eat, I don't like think it's like if I work out early in the morning though, I will do like a carb powder or something like that. 'Cause I'm
Hmm.
not a big fan of fasted training.
Yeah.
I used to actually do it a lot in college, and I just think you're kind of spinning your wheels
Hmm.
because you're just not giving your body the fuel it needs
Yeah.
to perform. So I think like when I talked, this is kind of going on a tangent. When I talk to people about like their weight loss, they're like so scared of carbs. I'm like, hey, like especially during our transformation challenge, I'm like, if you're gonna ever consume carbs, like do it around your training. I don't care if you use a carb powder or not, but like that's when you're most insulin sensitive. So it's
Yeah.
like that's when you're gonna uptake utilize the carbs the most, and you need them. So it's like that's when you should take it. Other than that, though, I take creatine 5 grams a day. Sometimes I do the single ingredient things like we have betaine, Pico 2 that
Hmm.
I'll take daily. So, but it's nothing crazy. Like I'm not. even though I formulate a lot of supplements, I don't like take a ton.
Yeah.
But it just depends on, like I said, the sleep stack I'm experimenting with right now is the theanine, ZMA, and ashwagandha.
Yeah, that's a
But
pretty
that's what I
solid
really
one.
want to do. I do want to do a stress support supplement for sure. I think
Yeah.
that's something that's going to be really big for most people. I think anyone would agree with that because it's like everyone's stressed out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in light of the past 2 years, and who knows where things are going in the next 2 years. So,
Yeah, I'm also not a big fan of like relying too heavily on medications.
right.
Just because that kind of puts you down a wormhole, and the side effects are normally not very fun. With most of, like, yeah, obviously they're needed for some people, but it's like if you can do stuff naturally, I feel like that's the best bet. I feel like some people are too quick to go on certain things, and you're just like, there's some natural substances, like during that time when everyone's like, oh, vitamin D is great for your immune system. As soon as you say that, everyone's like, all of a sudden your company shut down because you said vitamin C or NAC or whatever. It's like, come on, like these things actually work. It's not like, you know, I don't know. It's just that we could talk about that probably for a while, but I'm just like, you know what?
Yeah, that would be a whole other thing. You'd get the podcast demonetized like that off of
I
YouTube,
know.
probably.
I do take vitamin D every day, whether it's for
Yeah.
immune system or not. I do take that every day.
Yep, I do that. I do N-acetylcysteine every day because I
Yeah.
do like my bourbon and all the other stuff. So,
I do. Yeah,
speaking
like,
of which, Seth is a huge whiskey guy. Have they kind of swoon you, or have they swayed you over
oh, you
to
want to hear a
enjoying the finer
story?
things?
So they have this big whiskey wall, right, in the
Yeah.
podcast room. And man, like, I'm sure there's some like, you'd probably like, love tasting them and trying them and all this stuff. But number one, I don't drink alcohol at all.
Mhm.
So I'm not used to what those taste like. And
Yeah.
one of these days, I think Shane is our, like, he's like the operations VP. He's pretty high up there, but he's like, hey, you
Yeah.
got to take a shot of whatever. I'm like, I'm not taking a shot. Like, no. And then he convinced me to take like a sip or something. And
Yeah.
Mike goes over there, and I think he's just kind of trolling me. He pours Stag, whatever I don't know.
Oh,
Oh, it
oh,
was
that's
brutal.
high octane stuff, but it's so
Yeah, I
good.
drank it, and I felt like I drank gasoline. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I didn't throw up or anything, and I was like, I just was like, I remember thinking like, you guys like this? Like, this is like something you guys enjoy? Like, they don't normally do that. They normally do, what's their go-tos? I don't even know. They have so many that they do, but like whenever we go traveling or whatever, it's always Jack and Diets, old fashions, and like that's what they always do. It's funny, and they'll get, they like steakhouses, they like all that stuff. So when they go out, that's for sure. But I'm not
Man,
into it.
he just walked up and poured you like, so for the listeners that don't know what Stag and Stag Junior are, that's an
I
offshoot
barely know what
of
Stag is.
the Buffalo Trace family. So Buffalo Trace is this very popular, very widely, reputed distillery. A lot of their stuff has been allocated as of late because it's gotten such high praise, and Joe Rogan has started hyping that as one of the sponsors on his podcast. It's impossible to find even like regular on the shelf, like their normal everyday daily driver bourbon of Buffalo Trace, because they also do
Really?
Blanton's, the little grenade looking bottle with the horse on top of
Oh,
it.
so they're big
Barrel-shaped
on
bottle.
Blanton's.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're big
that's
on
great.
Blanton's.
Stag is part of the BTAC, so the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. They're once or twice a year allotted things that they release in very limited quantities, and they don't cut that. So it's the unfiltered barrel cask strength. So it's somewhere between like 120 and 128 proof, which it's lighter
Jeez.
fluid if you're not used to drinking higher stuff.
It
Where you
was
have to
lighter
put it
fluid.
over a
It
rock.
was for sure.
Yeah.
That's exactly how. And ever since then, I was like, I don't trust you guys. I'm not trying anything. And it's funny because I try to get them to do like supplement tasting, and sometimes they're like, no, no. I'm like, you've tried. Come on, like you drink this stuff, like you'll be fine. But it's just,
Yeah.
it's funny what you get used to. Like, I could drink some pretty terrible tasting things and be fine, but it's like that was just another. I just don't drink it all, so that was funny. But
yeah, tell them to give you some Weller. It's a wheated bourbon in the same Buffalo Trace family, but it's sweeter because it doesn't have a rye component. It's got wheat in it instead. That'll be sweeter, and that's a little bit easier to get used to than the Stag or Stag Junior.
Funny stories too, like NutriBio. You know how Mark is really into like tequila and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He sent them like a big tequila thing too,
Mm-hmm.
like all these different premium, and I'm like, I've just never had that.
I'm not big into tequila. I can do it if like give me a margarita or something or a Mexican martini, I'll do it. I can't just sip tequila by itself. Bourbon I can, but I can't do tequila.
I wonder if that's what Mark does.
Yeah.
He probably does. I've tried some drinks that I enjoy. It's just
Mhm.
like I just never really got really big in alcohol in general, so I'm just not very like versed on it. And like especially with the bourbons and stuff like that. Like you guys, I probably learned more from you and Justin than I learned from any other. You know what I mean? Like at one point I knew all the names, and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of know, but never tried any of them.
That was
But
just I went down a rabbit hole starting in probably 2018 or 2019, and then they had a lot of free time in 2020, so started
it's an
trying
expensive
out.
hobby though. I mean, some of
It
those places we go into, like whenever we're traveling, that's another thing they like to go to like different stores and see what they have and
hmm
if they have anything unique. Because like you said, in certain areas it's easier to get some things than others, and
yeah,
but it's something I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing in here, and I don't know like what you guys are looking at, but like here I am. Some of the bottles are really cool. Say
yeah.
that,
So
but
the designs look great, and if there's a once in a lifetime kind of event or a once a year event, I can see getting a special bottle of bourbon and spending $80 or $200 because you're sharing it with a bunch of people, you're making memories with it. But for something I'm going to keep around here at the house, or if I'm like just normal stuff, if we're having a hosting like a
mhm.
faculty or something, I'm gonna go for like the bottle that's 20 to 40 or $50. I don't even like to spend over $50 on a bottle for myself. I feel weird doing that. Just
Mhm.
there's so much great stuff on the lower end that I don't see the need to go and spend. Now, if that's your thing, that's your only vice in life, sure. But
Yeah. No, I think that's with a lot of things too. There's always like those high end things, but it's like when you go to a fancy restaurant and you're like, okay, the food is all right, but I could go to this one joint that's way cheaper and it's actually at least in my opinion, better. You know what I mean? So it just
yeah,
depends. But yeah, that's
agreed.
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Last thing, you mentioned that you kind of listen to a lot of Stan Efferding stuff, and
Hmm.
he's for the listeners that aren't sure about that, he's a big proponent of the vertical diet. Are you following that specifically, or just you just kind of take a few, just some of his basic practices and apply that to your
Yeah, I
nutrition?
do. I do follow a lot of what he like the white rice thing, the
hmm
beef, like like certain things I do try to like. I haven't done strict vertical diet. I don't really
Yeah,
believe in like, but if I had to like say what diet does my what is like which popular mainstream diet does mine resemble the most, it would be the vertical diet. Like I've
yeah,
never gone keto or not really any of those things. I think his is the best approach because it's more of like a health based plus performance based approach. And if you actually
yeah.
listen to him, he's not like I just don't see why you wouldn't like want to try it just because like the way he preaches certain things and he
Agreed.
takes examples from the bodybuilding industry and says like this and this happens because they cut out this and this. It's like it makes complete sense. It's like
Yeah,
I just think following that kind of thing. But I do protein powder, I do chicken, which he doesn't really like. He's
hmm
more like steak rice guy, but I do, like I said, I don't like strictly follow it.
yeah,
But I do a lot of the things that he talks about, like the 10-minute
hmm
walks, I think are awesome.
yeah,
Especially just for clearing your head, for improving digestion, things like that, I think are huge.
yeah. Do you
So
avoid certain vegetables or anything? Because I know he's not super
yeah,
keen on broccoli, and some of those are like the really
I do. I
cruciferous ones.
normally just do spinach, peppers, and then like carrots. So like on
hmm
that side of things, I definitely follow that a lot. Yeah, there's just certain things, but like I said, I still take protein powder and stuff like that. Like I know he's not really big on that, but
Yeah,
I don't think it's something I probably can never give up. I don't know. I
yeah.
just like the taste of it, so I'm just
It's
like.
convenience, and then yeah. Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite flavor of protein powder?
So I honestly, this is hilarious. I always love to try new things, but I always go back to chocolate vanilla every single time. Like
Yeah.
as long as it's a really good chocolate and a really good vanilla, I'll go back to that. But if it's
Yep.
like if they just can't nail either one, I'm just like, you know what I mean? Like I am picky about those two, but like
Yeah.
whenever I do like a cookies and cream or like a I don't know, just like cinnamon or like I just get so sick of them. I'm like I just
Yep.
and here's the thing, like chocolate vanilla, you can always customize it to taste like whatever you want. So if you want a smoothie and it's going to be berries, add vanilla. If you want like chocolate peanut butter, just add peanut flour. Like
Sure.
those are the most customizable things that you can do. And I'm not super picky on it, but I like chocolate. And I've tried so many
Yeah.
chocolate peanut butter proteins. I'm like, none of these taste as good as you putting some peanut butter with some chocolate. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I do prefer more like a darker chocolate
Same.
on the chocolate spectrum. And then vanilla, I really like vanilla bean or vanilla ice cream kind of one. I hate vanilla cake,
hmm
vanilla ice cream because they taste too sweet to me. Like they're just kind
Yep.
of weird, like vanilla icing or
Yeah.
whatever. And or like a French vanilla is always pretty good. So like,
hmm
it's funny. I've tried so many proteins in my like, even though I'm pretty young and probably not nearly as versed in proteins as you are, but like I just remember trying so many and I'm like, man, I don't like inclusions in my protein unless it's like cookies and cream.
hmm
I'm not a big fan on like I don't know, having a 40-gram scoop and you only get 20 grams of protein. Like, I'm not a big fan of fillers and all that stuff, like
Yeah.
I want it to taste good, but I don't need it to be like an ice cream milkshake. You know what I mean? In terms of
Agreed.
macros and ingredients. And people
Yeah.
put like I've gone to events where like, they're sampling protein and they'll like mix it with like heavy cream or like whole milk. I'm like, of course it's gonna taste good. You're making a milkshake for them.
Right. Very
But
true.
it's I just always go back to chocolate vanilla and I think almost every brand on the market that's their best-selling like flavors. I don't think there's really. I mean, our strawberry Dippin' Dots is our best. It's one of our best sellers, I'd say, because people just love that flavor. I'm just not a big fruity protein fan. Like fruity cereal proteins, I despise. Like you don't like Blue Raz. I hate fruity cereal proteins. I don't know. I can admit they taste like them, but like that's never like it's so not versatile. What are you gonna use that for? Like all you do is make a shake. Like I don't know what you're gonna use that for, but like because I'm big into baking and mixing with oats and stuff. So I just think
that's the only time I use those weird flavors. Any kind of berry flavored or fruit flavored protein. It's only if I'm making like a yogurt concoction bowl with Greek yogurt, some frozen berries and whatever else I'm throwing in there. Some nuts.
Yeah, I would have to say if I was gonna use like a fruity, I would just use strawberry because I do like strawberry milk, like Nesquik strawberry milk. I do really like that. So as long as it tastes like on point, but I'm just not a big fan of like strawberry cheesecake or like this. And also, it's just whenever you get those flavors and you see the packaging and the flavor name, you're like, oh, it's gonna be awesome. And then you try and you're like, that doesn't taste anything like what is this? And then you get disappointed. So,
exactly,
it is what it is. But flavors are, just flavors. But you can call them whatever they want. But
awesome, Heather. I'm very glad we got to do this. Thank you for joining today.
I know it's been a while. Like I said, I've been listening to you for as long as I got into supplements. I don't even know how I found your podcast. I really honestly. It's funny how you try to trace back to like when you started watching someone or following. I'm like, I don't even remember, but like I just found it on Apple iTunes, and I've always been big into podcasts. I always love listening to them more than like the radio or music. So then you and Justin, and then we're still good friends with Justin. Obviously, I talked to him, here and there. I think he's doing pretty well, but I'm going to
see him in a little less than 2 weeks up at Jersey for the Apollon seminar, so it'll be good.
Oh, nice.
We're going to go and see if we can drink a bar out of bourbon again like we did last time we were there.
I heard about the story, that's for sure. Yeah. He's fun because he's such a practical guy, but he knows a ton, and he's able to like, just tell people how it is in layman's terms, and you know what I mean? It's like you always have those two sides. Like I could be super nerdy and talk over people's heads, but it's like, do I really need to do that? Like, nah,
just get down to brass tacks.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, it was just really fun. Like I said, I appreciate you having me on the show and doing all this because I know you've talked to Jay Cutler and you talked to all these big people, and it's like it is fun too to connect with those people because those people have watched, and I'm like, I would never be able to, you know what I mean? Like Missy Truscott, like I just met her, and I'm like, she's like Miss Olympia, you know what I mean? Or Jay, like I have, Jay, like I talked to him quite a bit, and it's just kind of cool.
It's weird because I like you said, like I still feel like I'm this little nobody in the industry, and you get these like 4-time Mr. Olympia on the show, and you realize, holy shit, this is really cool. Like a respected researcher like Lane Norton or Hector Lopez or any of these guys, it's just really cool that something like a podcast, something as innocuous as that, and they've got these people that would be like massive figures in our industry, and they just say, and they're super down to earth, very
they are. Most of them are really down to earth, and it's like you realize that's so like how much of a small industry it is, and like how tight. Because you go to all these events, if you go to Olympia, if you go to the Arnold, you start to see the same people, and you kind of get like you kind of start knowing everybody, and then I mean, it's just I don't really view companies as competition. I just view them as, you know what I mean? We're all trying to like do our best in the space, and people always get a little butthurt or whatever. I just don't really get into the industry drama. Like I just don't really. What's the point of that? We're not really trying to like beat you or be better than you. Or just plus, I think we all cater to different consumers. I mean, we're a big blue collar industry. Or, like our consumers are blue collar, and it's like we're not going after the I don't know, certain demographic that maybe Ghost is targeting, or like whatever it is. It's like we're all different, and that's what makes it fun, right? So.
Exactly. Anything you want to plug before? We put a bow on the patch and send that out.
You do want to follow me on Instagram. I know you aren't on social media, but Instagram's H_Jacques. I do some videos on there. I'm not the best at I'm pretty monotone, so my videos are kind of boring, but like I try to explain and answer questions and all that stuff. But if you ever have any questions, you can always email me. It's hjacques@Axe Sledge. Like I said, DM me on Instagram. I try to help it in any way I can. Sometimes I do Q&As on the Instagram, the Axe page. So you'll see me on there and stuff. But yeah, I'm pretty easy to find. It's funny, like we talked about the events, like some people come up to me, they're like, oh, I know you, you're from, I'm like, what? Like, it's kind of weird to me because I'm just not really in the spotlight. So like, I don't have a huge following or anything, but it's just funny that people come across to you from different pages. So, but yeah, I'm always willing to help if anyone has questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll find out, it's always learning for me too. So.
Outstanding. I'll include links to all of those locations in the show
And
notes.
be on the lookout for Black Friday for sure. It's gonna be big for sure.
Awesome. Cool. All right, Heather. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
All right, see ya.